They didn't try to silence Arnold Schwarzenegger. They tried to erase him, frame by frame, pixel by pixel. First came the lies. Then came the betrayal. But the real threat? It wasn't that they twisted his words. It was that they almost made him believe he had no right to speak at all. Before we dive in, let us know where you're watching from today, and if you still believe truth matters, hit subscribe. What you're about to hear was never supposed to reach you. The town hall was supposed to be about immigration. But no one believed that was the real topic. Not with Trump on stage. Not with the cameras rolling. He sat with arms loose, leaning just enough to signal he was about to go off script. His fingers traced the microphone like it was a trigger. Across the table, Arnold watched. He had spoken moments before, quietly, clearly, about how his father came back from war broken, how he arrived in this country with 2 words of English and a bag full of doubt. He had not raised his voice. He did not need to. Trump smiled the way a knife smiles before it cuts. He made a career out of blowing things up on screen, Trump said. Let's make it real for him. The room stilled. A man in a grey suit leaned close to whisper. He should have taken the job in 2020. You asked. He laughed. Trump's jaw flexed. He nodded once. He won't laugh again. The moderator blinked. The air turned brittle. Arnold turned. Slowly. No flair. Just finality. I built my life from drywall and broken English. You inherited a gold toilet and flushed every ounce of courage down it. Don't you dare define patriotism to a man who earned it. Silence. Not the respectful kind. The kind that makes your spine forget how to hold you upright. Trump tapped the microphone. Twice. Calm. Measured. That's cute, Arnold. But this is real life. No one laughed. No one clapped. Even the cameras seemed unsure what to focus on. Then came the movement. In the audience, a man in black. Civilian clothes. No badge. No emotion. He pulled out a phone. His screen read, "Activate Forge site." Full cycle. He hit send. It's time to bury him. Then the phone disappeared into his jacket. So did he. 3 blocks away, a server buzzed to life. No fanfare. No human voice. Just a soft electric hum. On its screen, a face began rendering. Arnold's. Back in the town hall, the moderator tried to recover. "Mr. President, would you like to respond?" Trump leaned into the microphone without looking at her. "I just did." The feed cut to commercial. Somewhere, a tweet had already gone out. Somewhere else, an algorithm had already begun stitching lies into pixels. Arnold sat still. Not broken. Not shaken. But alert. Focused. Watching the way rooms change after power has shifted. He had no idea what was coming. But they did. And they had just pressed start. It started with one clip. Grainy at first. Then clearer. The lighting looked off, but the voice was unmistakable. It was Arnold, standing behind a podium at what looked like a military graduation. He was saying the words slowly, calmly. The military breeds mindless loyalty. Within minutes, it was everywhere. Twitter, Facebook, cable news, screenshots, transcripts, hashtags. Some called it disturbing. Others called it treason. But very few questioned whether it was real. Arnold had never said those words. The speech had happened 2 years prior. He remembered it clearly. He had spoken about sacrifice, duty, and how his own service in the Austrian army shaped his respect for American soldiers. But in this version, his mouth said something else. His voice was his. The cadence matched. The lip movement synced. Only the soul was missing. Behind the scenes, a name floated through secured email chains and encrypted group chats. Forge Site Labs. On paper, it was just a tech startup focused on voice synthesis and video enhancement. But buried in the LLC filings and IP license grants, a different truth lived. Forge Site Labs was funded primarily through a political action committee. Its name was American Signal. The chairman of that PAC was a senator known more for his loyalty to Trump than any legislation he had ever passed. Inside the PAC's internal server, an email was leaked by someone who either had a conscience or an agenda. Do not debate him. Deplatform him. Then erase. It was not about policy. It was not about immigration. It was deletion, plain and direct. The clip ran non-stop for 72 hours. Columbia University cancelled Arnold's guest lecture on ethics in leadership. Georgetown withdrew its invitation for him to speak on public service. A veteran organization pulled his name from their advisory board, stating they were reassessing all affiliations. Arnold tried to respond. He posted a short video. No background music. No dramatic lighting. I did not say that. And I would never dishonor those who serve. I came to this country because men in uniform stood between tyranny and freedom. I owe them my life. But the response was buried under headlines. Schwarzenegger denies video, but experts say it matches Vorisprint. AI or not, perception is reality in politics. Even silence became dangerous. His phone rang 3 times that week from unknown numbers. On the 4th, it was his sister-in-law. She did not waste time. They just fired Mark. No explanation. One moment he is briefing, next moment security is escorting him out. He cannot even access his email. Mark was Arnold's nephew. A career civil servant. Quiet. Lawful. Dedicated. And now, unemployed. Arnold asked what the official reason was. No cause stated, she replied. Just security concerns. He sat down in his home office and stared at the framed photograph on the shelf. It showed Mark in uniform, shaking hands with a general after helping with emergency response planning. That photo was now 10 years old. But the pride in Mark's eyes had not faded. Until now. A second email leaked. This one was shorter. Colder. We need to make the immigrant turn on the immigrants. He is becoming too useful. It was addressed from a strategy director at American Signal to the communications lead of a popular far-right news outlet. The subject line read, Phase 2. Arnold did not speak for 24 hours. He did not post. He did not meet with press. He cancelled all calls except one. It was with a retired general who had once invited him to tour West Point. They had not spoken in a year. The general answered on the second ring. I do not believe that video, he said without greeting. But belief is not the issue now. It is the fear they are building around your name. And fear spreads faster than truth. Arnold nodded, even though no one could see him. He knew what was coming next. They were not just targeting his record. They were not just targeting his voice. They were making it unsafe for others to be near him. By the end of the week, 2 more events were cancelled. One sponsor quietly pulled out of a veteran support program that bore his name. No official statement. Just silence. A silence that spread like fog, cold, dense, and full of erasure. The press conference took place on a Wednesday afternoon. No red carpet. No flags. No backlit podium. Just a folding table in a community center gymnasium with peeling paint and an American flag hanging slightly crooked behind it. Arnold stood alone. No team flanking him. No brand consultants. Just a USB drive in his pocket and a voice that was not ready to be bought. He looked out over the room. Local outlets filled the chairs. College reporters. A few stringers. No major networks. CNN had scheduling conflicts. Fox News did not respond. MSNBC asked for a transcript instead. He reached into his jacket, pulled out the drive, and held it between 2 fingers like evidence in a courtroom. This, he said, is what they hope no one sees. He plugged it in. The projector came to life. First slide, a money trail. One account linked to ForgeSight Labs. Another linked to a shell company based in Delaware. Then the bridge, a PAC called American Signal. The transaction read clean. 8 transfers. 3 months. Over $2.3 million labeled as infrastructure support. Arnold continued. Next was a chain of emails. The dates aligned with the release of the first deepfake. The tone was blunt. One read, "Lock the phrasing. Make the cut tight. No room for doubt." Another simply said, "His accent is an asset. Use it." Then came the footage. It showed a behind-the-scenes glimpse inside ForgeSight's development suite. An engineer explaining how they matched old speeches with manipulated body posture. Another technician laughed as he played back a version of Arnold saying something he never had. They knew it was fake. They built it anyway. The final slide was not data. It was a still image of Mark, Arnold's nephew, being escorted from his government building by two men in suits. His badge was clipped upside down. His face did not show anger, just disbelief. Arnold stepped back from the microphone. "They call it cancel culture," he said. "I call it coward culture, where truth is too loud, so they buy silence in bulk." Reporters asked questions. Most wanted to confirm spellings. A few asked about next steps. One asked if he would apologize again. "Apologize for what?" he asked. "For existing?" He ended the conference after 13 minutes. The truth was not a speech. It was a mirror. And some people were not ready to look. He walked past the cameras, past the volunteers, and into a small hallway where a former legal advisor waited. She closed the door behind them. "You made your point," she said. "Now make peace." Arnold turned to face her. "What does peace look like?" he asked, "when they already decided who I am?" She did not blink. "It looks like silence. Strategic silence. Step back, issue a softer statement, distance from the fire. This is not winnable, Arnold." He shook his head. "If I step back now, I was never standing in the first place." She sighed. "It is not about what is true. It is about what sticks." That night, the full press conference was posted to his official website and social channels. It was viewed by over 600,000 people in the first day. But none of the major networks aired it. Instead, headlines read, "Schwarzenegger doubles down despite expert consensus on deepfake, controversial actor politician deflects with conspiracy claims." One outlet blurred the photo of Mark, citing privacy reasons. Another misquoted Arnold's speech entirely, replacing coward culture with cancel culture tantrum. By morning, a new audio clip surfaced. It was a phone call. The voice was unmistakable. A former advisor of Arnold's. The one who helped draft his first campaign for governor. The one who sat across from him in strategy meetings for years. He was speaking to someone offline. "He does not understand it is over," the voice said. "He thinks moral clarity still works." The line was delivered without venom. Not mocking. Not angry. Just cold. Like someone explaining a patient's condition to a family that still held out hope. The clip spread faster than Arnold's press conference had. By lunchtime, it was trending on Twitter. By dinner time, it was on talk radio. By nightfall, it had become a quote attached to his name in every meme, every smear post, every late-night segment. "He thinks moral clarity still works." Arnold did not respond. He went for a walk instead. No security detail. No entourage. Just a man walking through a city that once called him a symbol of the American dream. And now watched him like a rumor waiting to be confirmed. The auditorium was modest. No stage lights. Just rows of folding chairs and a single microphone stand near a community center flag in El Paso. The air smelled faintly of coffee and desert wind. People showed up not for spectacle, but out of something quieter, confusion, maybe hope, maybe doubt. Arnold stood near the front. No notes. No script. Just a bottle of water at his feet and sleeves rolled above his elbows. He had been speaking for 20 minutes, answering questions directly. Some were hostile. Some cautious. Most unsure. Then a man stood up in the second row. Camo jacket. Silver hair. Military boots that had seen more than parades. He did not wait to be called on. He took one step forward and shouted over the microphone. "My son enlisted because of your words." His voice cracked on the last word. "Now you say soldiers are brainwashed." Arnold opened his mouth, but before a word could form, the man was already moving. One stride, then another. He closed the space between them in seconds. The punch was not cinematic. It was fast, sudden, raw, fist to cheek. The sound of it echoed sharper than the silence that followed. Arnold did not fall. He staggered back half a step. His eyes did not flash. His hands did not clench. He simply lowered his head. That punch did not hurt as much as knowing I failed someone who once believed in me. Security rushed in. The man was restrained, not fighting, just shouting. He screamed that Arnold betrayed everything. Screamed that the video was real. Screamed that he had told his son to follow a man who now spit on uniforms. Arnold held up a hand. Do not press charges. But it was too late. The man was already being walked out. Reporters had their footage. Cell phones had their clips. And somewhere in a dark server room, someone already had their headline. By the next morning, the video went viral. But it was not the full footage. The version that spread started right after the punch. It cut the question. It cut the pain. It left only a veteran in cuffs shouting, and Arnold standing silent as police led the man away. The caption read, "Veteran arrested for speaking truth to Hollywood traitor." Cable news split into two camps. Some questioned why a decorated American was being silenced for asking a question. Others aired debates on whether Arnold should be banned from speaking in military towns. Arnold tried again to clarify. He posted a video that night. A single take. No edit. He explained that the man was not his enemy. That grief had become confusion. That no one should be arrested for being hurt. He ended the video with this: "When trust is broken, pain turns loud. I understand that. But silence does not rebuild anything. Only truth can do that. Even when it hurts." The video barely reached 100,000 views before it was buried under sponsored content. That same night, a new hashtag began appearing on multiple platforms. #HollywoodCoward. It did not trend naturally. The pattern was algorithmic. Hundreds of identical posts, each with minor wording shifts. Most from accounts with no profile photos. No followers. Just activity. A digital fingerprint led back to a familiar source. American Signal. Inside their strategy file, one directive was highlighted in red: exploit soldier narrative. Drive betrayal framing. Flood with #HollywoodCoward. Arnold's team tried to respond. They flagged misinformation. They appealed to platforms. They issued statements. None of it slowed the spread. By day 3, the hashtag had been mentioned over 3 million times. Arnold watched it all unfold from his living room. No advisors. No camera. Just him and the screen. The punch replayed on loop. His still image beside headlines he did not write, quotes he did not say. He closed the laptop. Outside, someone honked twice and drove off. A voice called him a fraud. He did not flinch. But he also did not speak. Not that night. Not to anyone. He knew what was happening now was no longer about him. It was about what people needed him to represent. And how fast they were willing to erase him when that image broke. The call came early. It was short. Cold. Legal. The documentary was cancelled. The producer did not pretend. No sugarcoating. No excuses about budget or timing. "We cannot move forward with you, Arnold. The board is unanimous." Arnold did not argue. He just said thank you and hung up. The project had been 3 years in the making. It was not about fame. It was about legacy, an honest look at his immigrant journey, his stumbles, his attempts to use power with purpose. Now it was gone. Quietly erased. Like it had never existed. He sat alone in the kitchen as sunlight crept through the blinds. One phone call had cut a thread. But it was not the first. And it would not be the last. Later that afternoon, an email arrived. It was from the board of an education fund, the Schwarzenegger Opportunity Fellowship. It had helped hundreds of students over the years. First-generation kids. Immigrants. Dreamers. They had just signed off on a 5-year renewal last fall. Now the subject line read, "Temporary suspension of sponsorship disbursements." The message was polite, almost kind. They were pausing operations due to concerns raised about public perception. There was no mention of the deepfakes. No mention of political sabotage. Just perception. Arnold stared at the email for a long time. Not because he was surprised, but because the erasure had become quiet, efficient, corporate. That evening, a letter arrived. It was handwritten. The envelope was heavy, the script familiar. It came from a professor at a small liberal arts college in the Midwest. The professor had once studied under Arnold when he guest lectured at the Kennedy School. They had stayed in touch. A photo of them had hung on his office wall for a decade. The letter began with 2 words. "I'm sorry." Then came the rest. "I was asked to remove the photograph. Students have raised concerns. One of them called you military denier adjacent. I tried to explain. But it did not matter. I have to think of my position. My family." Arnold folded the letter once, then again. He did not feel anger. He felt something slower. Something colder. "They do not want silence," he whispered. "They want self-erasure. And the worst part? It is working." He opened a drawer and pulled out a photograph of the first class he had ever sponsored. Faces of young students, full of the hunger he had once carried in his bones. Some had gone on to become teachers, lawyers, even one state representative. He wondered how many of them still told people where the scholarship came from. Across town, in a rented office with no name on the door, a screen glowed with activity. Dozens of chat threads. Dozens of directive memos. A stream of posts, tags, hashtags being scheduled, rotated, amplified. And one message stood out. It was from a private Slack channel marked AM Signal OPS. Phase 3 complete. He is isolated. One more cycle, and he'll beg to disappear. No names. No signatures. Just a progress update. Like checking a box. At that moment, Arnold was walking the length of his hallway. Hands in pockets. Shoulders heavy. Not with fear. Not with guilt. With weight. He stopped by a cabinet and pulled open the bottom drawer. Inside were newspaper clippings. Old ones. Yellowing. One headline read, "Immigrant bodybuilder becomes California's governor." Another, "Arnold delivers commencement address on service and sacrifice." He had kept them as reminders of what was possible. But now they felt like notes from another life. One that had not been edited. Yet. He stood there for a moment longer. Then he whispered to himself, "Do not let them do this. Not without a fight." But even the whisper sounded smaller than it used to. The room was silent except for the soft hum of the ceiling fan. Arnold sat behind his desk. The light outside had already started to dim, casting long shadows across the floor. The office was stripped of any noise, of any voices, just a space meant for one thing: compliance. The camera in front of him was already recording. A small red light blinked steadily. The script sat on the desk in a plain folder. No logo. No signature. Just black text on white paper. It had been written by a crisis consultant. Reviewed by a legal team. Approved by the people who still had access to influence. The script was short. 43 seconds. That was all it would take, the lawyers said. A soft walk back. Not a full admission, just enough to allow the networks to move on. To let the sponsors return. To cool the temperature and begin the quiet repair of reputation. Arnold had read it 3 times already. He did not disagree with the wording. That was the problem. It was neutral. Safe. Polished. It was also a lie. He leaned forward. Hands folded. Eyes locked on the lens. He started reading. "To all those who were hurt by recent events, I want to say," his voice cracked. But not from emotion. From resistance. He stopped. Stared at the page. Then reached over and deleted the teleprompter feed. Silence. He looked back at the camera. It was still rolling. He did not blink. "I was going to apologize," he said. For something I did not say. Because fear was easier than fighting. He let the words hang for a moment. Then kept going. And that is how they win. Not by silencing you, but by making you silence yourself, with a smile. He did not raise his voice. He did not need to. He reached forward and stopped the recording. The room stayed still. From behind the camera setup, a technician, a young man, barely 22, looked up from his monitor. He had been capturing behind-the-scenes footage for editing purposes. B-roll. Just angles and lighting references. He had not meant to catch that moment. But his lens had stayed open. He did not say a word. Just saved the clip. Labeled it quietly. Session_6B_and sanctioned MP4. He did not ask permission to keep it. And Arnold never knew it existed. That night, Arnold left the office without a word to his legal team. He did not return their messages. He did not answer follow-up questions. The official apology video was never posted. But something else was. 2 days later, the technician uploaded the unsanctioned clip to a private server. It was meant for internal review. But someone else accessed it. Someone who believed it needed to be seen. Within hours, the footage leaked. There were no titles. No production. No edits. Just Arnold. Sitting alone. Saying what he was not supposed to. I was going to apologize. For something I did not say. Because fear was easier than fighting. And that is how they win. Not by silencing you. But by making you silence yourself. With a smile. The clip exploded. Not because it was loud. But because it was quiet. It spread across platforms in whispers, not shouts. Reposted by veterans. Immigrants. Teachers. People who had stayed silent until now. One post read, "They tried to erase him. But truth has a way of leaking." Another simply said, "This is the most honest 40 seconds I've ever watched." By morning, millions had seen it. And for the first time in weeks, Arnold's voice was not being filtered through edits, spins, or smears. It was just there. Unpolished. Unbowed. Unbroken. But as the video rose, so did the panic. In a secure chat thread inside the American Signal Strategy Room, a new alert appeared: leak detected. Source unknown. Containment unlikely. No one responded for 30 seconds. Then a final message. Move to Phase 4. Full neutralization. No one asked what that meant. They all already knew. Certainly. Below is the fully rebuilt and upgraded Chapter 7 of the Silence they tried to buy, integrating all your notes and maintaining strict adherence to the viral impact storytelling framework. No contractions, no headers, and fully optimized for text-to-speech narration. The morning light was pale and undecided. Outside, birds chirped as if nothing had been erased. Inside the quiet room, Arnold sat alone. No staff. No advisors. No carefully constructed scripts. He had made a decision long before sunrise. Before filming, he turned off the work phone. Disabled Slack. Closed every tab with a draft from the communications team. This one, he would write with silence. He faced the camera. No music. No background. Just an old wooden desk and a single lamp to the right. The light flickered gently, catching on the curve of his jaw. He did not adjust his collar. He did not clear his throat. He simply looked into the lens, like a man who no longer had anything to promote, defend, or protect. His hands trembled for a second. He clenched them out of frame. Then breathed once. Not deep. Just enough to stay human. He began to speak. "They took my voice," he said. "But clarity does not need a microphone. It needs conviction." His voice was lower than usual. Worn. But not empty. "I spent decades believing that discipline and effort would earn you a place at the table. I was wrong. They do not want your voice. They want your agreement. And when they cannot have that, they want your disappearance." He blinked once. Slowly. As if even that required deliberation. "If you are still standing, use that." He paused. And if they come for your voice next, remember, silence is a choice. And so is resistance. He did not nod at the end. He did not smile. The recording faded not because it was complete, but because he chose to stop. The clip was under 30 seconds. He uploaded it himself. No announcement. No watermark. Just the raw file. It did not trend right away. But someone found it. Then another. And another. At a private Christian university in Texas, one known for censoring media tied to subversive political messages, a group of students burned the file onto CDs and USB drives. They passed them between dorms, whispering timestamps and usernames. On a bus in South Chicago, a nurse tapped the video on her screen twice and whispered, "Finally, something that does not feel fake." At a diner in Nevada, a waitress handed a customer his check. Written in permanent marker across the back was a line, "Clarity does not need a microphone. Just someone to not flinch." No one asked her why she wrote it. She just knew. The video spread. Not with volume, but with velocity. Then came the graduation. Ana Castillo stood backstage, her hands tight around a folded page. She had watched Arnold's video with her father the night before. He had not said much, only nodded once, and whispered, "That is how men used to speak." When her name was called, she stepped forward. 17 years old. Born in El Salvador. The first in her family to finish high school. Her gown brushed the stage as she moved toward the microphone. Midway through her speech, she stopped. "This part of the speech," she said, "was banned in 3 states. So I brought it with me. Because no one erases what has been felt." She unfolded the page and read. "They took his voice. But clarity does not need a microphone. It needs conviction. If you are still standing, use that. And if they come for your voice next, remember, silence is a choice. And so is resistance." The room did not clap at first. It just stood. One person. Then another. Then a dozen. No chants. No slogans. Just stillness. And breath. Later that night, a retired speechwriter for a former president posted the clip with a caption, "Arnold stopped performing." That is when people started listening. Back at the office where it had all begun, the team at American Signal was silent. No one messaged. No one replied. Only one line was added to the internal thread. "We underestimated the sound of a man with nothing left to sell." And that was the end of Phase 4. But it was the beginning of something else.